Hi guys, Matt, your host, one of your hosts here. So I've literally just in the last 10 minutes finished watching Extreme Rules. I was a little bit behind, pausing because I was eating food and things. Anybody that follows us on Twitter will have seen my tweets from the last 4 hours or 5 hours. I suppose I've been tweeting since the start of the pre-show. So I'm just going to go through the matches. To be fair, without thinking about it, horrific matches. It's not the worst pay-per-view in the world. There were a couple of iffy, dodgy decisions, a couple of iffy, dodgy matches, but overall, it was a fairly decent pay-per-view. So yeah, let's just go. I'm gonna have to read from a thing because I can't. I've been up for like 20 hours at this point, so I'm gonna have to read from a card to try and remember what order everything went in. So if you just bear with me with that. So the first match on the pre-show was Almas versus Sin Cara.
Looking ahead to Sunday's WWE Extreme Rules Show, and to help us do just that, I'm now joined by CBS Sports Combat sports writer Bryan Campbell. So, Bryan, this is a card that.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so it was Almas versus where the hell are we? Almas versus Sin Cara, which was an Almas win. The match was very, very similar to the match that they had on SmackDown. There was a couple of extra moves. I think Almas got a frog splash, or was it Sin Cara? No, Sin got a frog splash in. Almas was pushed off the top rope onto he did a front flip onto the ring apron, and then went obviously rolled off. But other than that, it was pretty much an identical match. Oh, and instead of winning with the knees, he then picked him up and did the hammerlock DDT. But Almas won. Nothing to write home about. Standard pre-show match. That was followed by Sanity versus the New Day. Again, a very standard pre-show match. Table stipulation makes it a little bit different, but the New Day set the tables up first, therefore Sanity won, just like every match for the last 10 years. A few decent spots. I can't really remember much. There was I'm not very good with Sanity, having not seen much of them from NXT because I've only just recently started watching NXT. But yeah, there was a few good spots from those guys, and they ended up the two guys that aren't Killian Dane, who's the only one I can remember the name of right now. One of them held, I think it was Kofi Kingston, ready for like a diving leg drop through the table. I assume they've got some sort of name for that move, and they did it to the outside rather than into the ring and put them through a table. And that was that, and that was the Sanity win. So that was the pre-show. That all finished about 10 minutes before the show was ready to start, and then we moved into the rest of the pay-per-view. So we started off with the Raw Tag Team Champions, and surprisingly, the B Team have beat the Deleters of World, which I did not see coming. I had this down as a Deleters win. In fact, I think most of the guys had this down as a Deleters of World win. Shock result. I can't even remember which one of them pinned Matt Hardy, but whoever it was, one of them pinned Matt Hardy, and they went round. I mean, they tried to get Roman Reigns later on in the show to join them in celebration if he won. But they were just messing around. They were enjoying themselves. It was a nothing match, really. There wasn't anything to write home about, but it wasn't a poor match by any standards. Couple of botches from the guys in the B team. I think it was Curtis Axel who was running towards Matt Hardy in the corner. Hardy kicked his legs up, but before Hardy's legs were up fully, the other fellow had already, Axel had already dropped to the floor like he'd been kicked in the face when Matt's feet were about waist height, which was a pretty poor botch. And there was another couple of botchy bits, but for the most part, it was a standard 10-15 minute tag team match with the B team coming out on top. Then straight from that, we go to a backstage interview with Kurt Angle, who's finally realised that he's Brock Lesnar's boss, so he can tell Brock Lesnar what to do. So he's said that he had talks with Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman said Brock's not interested in coming back to the WWE at the moment. So he said that he's told Brock and Paul Heyman that Brock has 3 options, which just, I don't, like, it's fine, but the 3 options he's given him were come to Raw tomorrow, or today for us. I suppose Raw is actually like Tuesday morning for us, but he's got to either go to Raw, he's got to say when he's going to defend his title, because he's still refusing to and hasn't got anything set for SummerSlam yet. Or option 3 is that Kurt takes the title off him. So Kurt's finally sorting his life out and getting involved in it, but it's far too late. They should have taken the title off Lesnar. They should never have given it to him. If you listen to the podcast, you know I hate Brock Lesnar, and I've always hated Brock Lesnar. Ever since he threw that one-legged guy down the stairs after breaking his leg the week before. It's like Attitude Era stuff, if you're not aware of that. But yeah, go back and watch it. He's and then, you know, all this Suplex City stuff, not fussed about. And yeah, he's just never. I don't understand why somebody who turns up 4 or 5 times a year gets title, because he used to fight in MMA and keeps getting banned for taking steroids. It's just a poor choice of what to do. But, you know, WWE love him. So yeah, we went straight from the B team match into that. That was then followed by them cutting to another bit of backstage footage where the Bludgeon Brothers are beating up Daniel Bryan and Kane. Bryan gets thrown into a garage door, and Kane has his foot trapped behind a door, and then I think it was Rowan hits his plastic hammer that's meant to be really heavy hammer into the door with Kane's leg behind it, and I think we're told that he's broken Kane's leg later on, or broken his ankle, or damaged his ankle in some way, but we'll get onto that. So following that was Carmella versus Asuka with Ellsworth in a shark cage. So that match was dreadful. Started off, obviously Ellsworth goes up in the thing. As soon as the referee's not looking, Ellsworth drops a chain from his pocket down to Carmella. Asuka blocks that by standing on running and standing on the chain before Carmella can pick it up. He then drops, I think it was the mace that he'd used on Asuka on Tuesday night's SmackDown. And then he then picks the lock and tries to get out of the shark cage, but gets his foot caught. So he's hanging upside down like a piñata, and then Asuka, who was beating up Carmella at this point and could have just continued beating Carmella up, decides that no, she's going to go back into the ring and kick and punch Ellsworth. I don't even know who it's supposed to be, whether it's production crew or medical staff or some people from WWE that were dressed in official uniform, come down, get them to bring the shark cage down, but only so far, because apparently the cage can only lower when there's people telling it to come down. So it comes down so that it's about head height, and then Asuka starts kicking all the officials so that she can keep kicking Ellsworth. So the bottom of the shark cage is then at her head height. She's then dragged back by an official eventually after a few more minutes of kicking Ellsworth. Carmella gets into the ring behind Asuka, and then grabs her by the shoulders and pushes her headfirst into the shark cage, and that's how Carmella retains the title. I had Carmella retain, and I didn't know how it was going to happen, but this is just stupid. Basically, Asuka just gets distracted by James Ellsworth, and like she doesn't pay attention to anything that wrestling somebody who can wrestle would pay attention to. They've killed Asuka's character. I've said this on the podcast so many times. They've killed Asuka's character. She's been dead in the water since they took the, what do you call it? They took her undefeated streak. Following this was another stupid thing. Jeff Hardy's been in. So it's the United States Championship match now. Jeff Hardy's been limping for months. I'm talking like 3 or 4 months at this point. I assume that injury is getting worse and worse because what happened here was they came out before the bell went. Jeff Hardy turned around for some reason, so Shinsuke Nakamura gave him a low blow. They then gave Jeff enough time to recover to stand to his feet. They rang the bell, Kinshasa straight away, pin 1, 2, 3, and after like 10 attempts at titles, Nakamura's finally been given a title run. So he's got the US title. Now, I've made my feelings on Shinsuke Nakamura very clear in the past. In Ring of Honor, in New Japan, anywhere we can actually use strong style well, or you can actually do strong style where you can like make connections with people's heads, he'll be a fantastic wrestler. In WWE, they won't let you do it, and he's really suffered for it, and I don't think he should be a WWE wrestler. I really don't think he should be, but he is. He's now US title. Then Randy Orton, who we've not seen for 2 or 3 months, comes out. Nakamura shits himself, goes out and stands on one of the announce tables. Orton gets into the ring, kicks Jeff Hardy in the testicles, and then leaves. So I assume it's a heel Randy Orton, which is better than the face Randy Orton that we've had for the last like 1.5 years since he started feuding with Bray Wyatt. So, you know, at least we've got a heel Randy Orton coming back, but I don't understand why he came back for this. I assume, I mean, there's no, unless Jeff Hardy is getting, so Jeff Hardy is fighting Nakamura again on Tuesday. He's invoked his rematch clause. So unless Jeff Hardy's getting the title back, I don't see why you have heel Randy Orton come in because Nakamura's a heel. So unless they're going to have heel versus heel and Orton's coming into this feud, I don't really know. But that seems to be what's happening at the moment. So that was followed by Kevin Owens versus Braun Strowman, which was one of the stupidest matches we've had this year. The more I think about this, the less good I think maybe this pay-per-view was. But Owens got a few bits of offense in early on. I can't remember how he got Braun Strowman down, but he got him down and in the corner. Then he did a cannonball into the frog splash, which allowed him to get a 1 count. Strowman was just straight up, back up again. There was then a decent match going on for about 5 or 6 minutes. Owens then got, I don't know where from, but he got handcuffed Strowman to the top rope. Instead of then climbing out of the cage, because he handcuffed him right in front of the door. So it's like, fine, you can't go out the door. Why don't you just climb out of the cage? But he didn't. So he tried to kick and hurt Strowman. He then wound Strowman up enough and then decided he was going to go and climb the cage in the opposite corner by where the announce tables are. He stands on the top rope and then does whatever taunt it was. Strowman then gets really angry. This is the man who snapped a ladder in half by hitting it. He's flipped ambulances, cars, you name it. He's the world's strongest man, but he couldn't get out of this handcuff. And then all of a sudden, because Kevin Owens had insulted him, he then just snapped it in half and climbed up the cage. So KO, as soon as he realized it snapped in half, he starts climbing the cage a bit faster, gets one hand on the top, and then tries to bring one leg up onto the top, by which time Strowman's caught up with him and is standing at the top of the cage and drags Kevin Owens up. Now, the logical thing would be, if you want to chokeslam him at this point, chokeslam him into the ring. It's not what happened. So Strowman deliberately loses the match by chokeslamming him through one of the announce tables outside. No idea who booked that or why, but that's just stupid. Unless Strowman doesn't care now. He doesn't care about win-losses because he's just waiting until he cashes in the Monster in the Bank contract that he's calling it. But yeah, that just made absolutely no sense to me. But, whatever. So following that, we had what started off as the Bludgeon Brothers versus Daniel Bryan, who was holding his ribs when he was on the way down to the ring. He had about 6 minutes on his own against the Bludgeon Brothers, and then Kane came out with his ankle in one of those brace boot things, the boots that you clip on, and the people who've got broken ankles. So we're supposed to think that despite having a broken ankle and having already sought medical attention, Kane has then come to the ring hopping on one leg. Kane gets in the ring. He hits a couple of choke slams, can't do a tombstone. A few other bits goes on, but eventually the Bludgeon Brothers win. Bit of a silly kind of, I don't understand why the Bludgeon Brothers didn't just beat them, why they had to injure them both before they got to the match, before they could beat them. But that's it seems to be what they're doing with Daniel Bryan. They did it when in WrestleMania, didn't they? They beat the crap out of him before he got involved in the match. It seems to just be the way that I don't know whether it's to try and give a reason why they're only giving short matches to Daniel Bryan, or I'm not sure. I can't see Team Hell No sticking around. Obviously, Kane, I think he's something like 40 days away from finding out whether he gets the mayor of whatever the town is. I can't remember what it's called. Knoxville, isn't it? So obviously that's why he's broken his ankle in storyline. So he can go out there. I don't understand why they brought them back just to do that. If this was why they brought Team Hell No back, then this was pointless. But we'll wait and see what happens on SmackDown on Tuesday or in the coming weeks. Hopefully they'll leave Kane to try and heal and then give a reason why, then bring him back. Hopefully. That was followed by the bit where the B team tried to get Roman Reigns to join them if he wins. It's just a silly segment where the B team were being themselves again. Backstage and outside of the wrestling, actually doing some wrestling, they're really good at promos and stuff. Really enjoy them. I just wish they could wrestle, but like I say, they're a bit botchy. But it'd be interesting to see. I'm hoping that it kind of leads to some form of Ultimate Deletion style thing where they end up back at the Hardy Ranch again, and the B team end up joining the Deleters of World, and it becomes a big stable of insane people, because I think that'd just be brilliant. And you could then, in theory, come Survivor Series, have the Deleters of World versus Sanity, and the Deleters of World be all of them totally and utterly insane, versus Sanity, who are just three insane people. I think that'd be a really good way to go, but whether that's what the WWE do, I don't know. And then straight after that they met Roman on the way down to the ring. So we had Roman Reigns come out to chorus of boos that was instantly turned down. He gets into the ring. Now, this is where I started losing it with the crowd. They booed Roman Reigns coming into the ring. Again, this is a mid-card match. He's not in a title match. He's not in the main event. What's your issue with this now? Come on, you can't tell me that he's not a good wrestler, because he is. I mean, the match with Bobby Lashley, considering I can't stand Bobby Lashley, and the crowd have made me annoyed with Roman Reigns, like to the point where he was my favorite wrestler 12 months ago, and there's no way you can get behind him now. But yeah, like Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley put on a decent match. It was slow and methodical to start with. There were a few then big spots. Roman lost by he did his whole arrow, his taunt thing that he does before a spear. Runs off, bounces off a rope, turns around and gets speared by Lashley, and Lashley gets the pin. It was a good way to end the match. So, like I say, it was a good match. I'm sure Dave Meltzer will give it 1 star because, I don't like... Let's stop talking about that. But I don't know. I'd give it 4 out of 5. It was a decent match, decent length of time. There was a couple of different in-ring stories told, and we eventually got a winner. And for a change, it wasn't Roman Reigns. I say for a change, I think he's won 1 match on one pay-per-view match this calendar year, and we're now in July. So, he's not getting the push that everyone's saying he's getting. People just need to shut up and actually watch the matches rather than just boo and chant Rusev Day and chant CM Punk, because actually it was a really, really good match, and just shut up. That was followed by Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax. Now, Bliss came down with Mickie James. Jax came down with Natalya. Mickie James was pulling things out of very early on. They went to the outside, obviously, because it's an Extreme Rules match, the only Extreme Rules match on the card. They went to the outside. Bliss was trying to use kendo sticks, which Jax stopped and snapped in half again, threw away. Then Mickie James was pulling things out of the ring. Bliss was trying to hit Jax with them. She was catching them and throwing them into the ring. So there was a couple of bins, a couple of chairs, a bin lid. There might have been another kendo stick and a few other bits, but whatever it was, there was a few different weapons, which was not a bad spot. Then they went off and did a bit of wrestling. Jax got knocked down. Natalya tried to get involved, and Bliss and Mickie James started beating down on Natalya. Ronda Rousey, who bought a ticket to sit in the front row. Yeah, okay then. That's totally what she did. She wasn't just put there by WWE. But yes, so Ronda Rousey hops the barrier, beats the living hell out of Mickie James, throws her into the barrier a couple of times, throws her into the ring apron, then throws her into the ring, and then tries to get involved with Alexa Bliss, at which point Mickie James is miraculously fine again, hits... it was Alexa Bliss running away. I think Alexa Bliss was running away, and Mickie James comes in and hits Rousey a couple of times with a kendo stick, which I think rendered her incapacitated. I don't think she came back from that. But we then got into a thing where it was basically a 2-on-1, Mickie James and Alexa. So every time Jax went for Alexa, Mickie James would come in and hit her with a weapon, or when Jax was trying to get rid of Mickie James, Alexa would then come in with a weapon. I think they finished with James was trying to do something to Alexa. Jax was trying to do something to Alexa. Mickie James comes in with a chair, which drops her down, then throws the chair on the floor. Bliss then gets a chair, hits her another couple of times, and then does a DDT onto one of the chairs and retains. That wasn't too bad a match. I mean, it was very gimmicky, kind of a bit pointless. They needed to take the title off Jax. With all the love in the world, she's not a very good wrestler. And I think I don't know why they've given it back to Bliss straight away, bearing in mind that she's held the title for like 300 days before she lost it. Was it Mania she lost it? I can't remember. But yeah, so it was just a bit silly. But yeah, once this was the feud that you were going to do, Bliss had to retain here. You don't need Nia Jax in the title picture anymore. And she's not, and fair enough. It just needed to be over. That was then followed up with possibly my favorite match of the night, Rusev versus AJ Styles. A few different sort of stories told. So Styles was working on Rusev's left leg all through the match, and then there's a couple of times where like Rusev went to do the accolade and couldn't quite plant his feet properly. He went to do a match kick and couldn't quite do what he was wanting to do. 3 or 4 times I really thought they were going to give the title to Rusev. But after a phenomenal forearm, I think AJ finally got it. Obviously, we all know that both these guys are really good in the ring. Both of them, I thought, performed really well. Certainly, Rusev held his own against arguably the best wrestler in the company of AJ Styles. Styles, I was, he never has a bad, like, unless you stick him in the ring with Nakamura, he never has a bad match. Oh dear, we ended with the Iron Man match. So Seth Rollins takes an early 2-0 lead. Drew McIntyre isn't happy with this. Ziggler's out on the floor. McIntyre gets in the ring, beat out of Rollins. The ref gives Rollins a DQ win. McIntyre then continues to beat up Rollins. Ref doesn't give another DQ win, but sends McIntyre to the back. McIntyre goes, okay then, does one of his Claymore kicks, and then goes to the back. Still, despite the fact that there's been like 2 minutes since he had the DQ win, doesn't get another DQ win. So Rollins feel hard done by there, if you ask me. But, wrestling and all that, and, it's clearly been booked by one of us because it was terrible booking. Then Ziggler gets the pin from the Claymore kick after like 15, 20 seconds. Then very quickly gets, I think it was from a zigzag, gets another pin, pulls it back to 3-all not long after that, then takes a 4-3 lead, and all of these pins happened between like 3 minutes and 15 minutes. And then there's a massive amount of time, and I think it was with about 5 minutes to go. Rollins equaled it up from a frog splash, I think. Did he equal it up from the frog splash, or was it from a curb stomp? Oh, no. So basically, there was like a 10-minute period where Rollins did a frog splash. He had one of his superplexes into the Falcon Arrow. He did a sling blade into the frog splash. He did something else as well. Like all moves that would know, like earlier on in the match, he would have definitely got the 3, but Ziggler was kicking out of. He then did a curb stomp and finally got to 4-all. And then with 11 seconds to go, I think, he does a curb stomp, but falls over, crawls away from Ziggler. So they're in the middle of the ring, facing the announce table straight ahead. So that they would be if I was them, be facing the announce tables. Ziggler is there, Rollins is there. Rollins then crawls around in a circle to get the cover. By the time he's crawled around in that circle, those 11 seconds that he had gone, and he loses. The match ends in a draw, which nobody's happy with. Cue Kurt Angle's music. Angle comes out, says, "No, we don't want to see this rubbish. Nobody wants this match to end in a draw. I'm from Pittsburgh, blah, 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 blah. Decides that he's going to restart the match, call it sudden death overtime. So rather than just saying now it's just a one-on-one and the first pinfall wins, it's a continuation of the 30-minute Iron Man match that's already finished, but he's calling it sudden death overtime. So the first one to do anything wins. He then, I assume, leaves the arena because straight away Drew McIntyre is back out, gets onto the apron. Rollins is distracted by this. Ziggler hits a zigzag and gets a pin and wins, and that's okay, despite the fact that he'd already been banned. McIntyre had already been banned from ringside. It's a bit silly. The crowd, the entire match, and not every minute, like every 10 seconds, we're counting down from 10 to 0, doing the Royal Rumble, and then starting again. So for an entire half-hour period, you just heard the crowd count down and then go, So, yeah, if you were one of the crowd in Pittsburgh, take a good hard look at yourself in the mirror and never, ever go to a WWE event ever again. Like, never. Because I don't want to put up with that shit. That was fucking awful, and it's all your fault. You ruined what was a really good match put on by Dolph and Seth. I'm not a fan of Dolph Ziggler, but the match was good and ruined by the crowd. And ruined by the terrible, terrible booking for that end. But is what it is. So yeah, that's my review of the show. All in all, like I say, pretty positive. Like, I know I've criticised a lot of the matches, but I'm just a negative person. Most of them would get a decent rating. There's a few silly ones that were just. I assume Jeff Hardy is injured and is going to lose in a short amount of period of time again on Tuesday, because to have him lose in less than 5 seconds, which was, I think, or was it 5 or 6 seconds somebody timed it at, from bell to the third drop of the hand from the ref. But yeah, apart from the couple of silly matches, it was a half decent pay-per-view. Built on all the storylines, and hopefully we can now go into SummerSlam. Brock will hopefully be fighting at SummerSlam and losing the belt so that we can forget that he ever existed, and he can go back to MMA and get beaten up so badly he can never wrestle again, and then we never have to put up with Brock Lesnar ever again. So let's hope that happens, but we'll wait and see. Anyway, so yeah, I've been Matt, and this has been my review. Jesus, my half-hour review of a 5-hour show. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like. Got anything to say to me, leave a comment, and one of us will reply to you. Follow us on Twitter at the Bad Bookers WP, and that's got the link to the rest of our Twitters in there. The podcast is available, iTunes, SoundCloud, all the usual places. I think it's in the description to this